Hello, you're listening to 168th special episode of Web-standarты podcast. I'm your host, Vadim Makeev. Meet our special guests today. It's not special just because we're recording in English, but we have a very special guest, Diego Gonzalez from Samsung Internet DevRel team. Hi, Diego. Just to kick this off, a few words about you. What you're up to, what you're doing here in St. Petersburg, Novosibirsk, Russia.
In Novosibirsk, yes. Hello. I'm at the moment here for CodeFest X.
Or 10, like iPhone.
Right. Like the iPhone, right? Product placement there. I'm here at CodeFest 10 and pretty much was doing a talk on the front end track. It was about how you get some really cool new APIs that are coming to the web that allow you to create some sort of immersion or immersive experiences, but also how you can pretty much use them in combination with that. So it's I think it's quite interesting, all these new things that you're being able to do with the web browser, and I kind of came to share a bit about that.
Okay, what's the? I know that there is a Samsung Internet browser running on Android phones, mostly made by Samsung, but you can also install it on the others, like with Android L Plus, something like this.
Android L Plus is what you would need. I think at the moment it's pretty much any manufacturer. We used to have kind of like just recommended devices on which the browser was tested, but nowadays I think pretty much just any Android device you can just download it from.
I have pretty old device by Google. What was the Google Nexus 6 or something, like pretty old one, and it's still capable of. If it's not even Android L, it's like Android something old one, but it's capable of running Samsung Internet as well. So I managed to test something, but. Why Samsung needs browser anyway?
Well, that's a very interesting question. The thing about Samsung having a browser is that the browser is a pretty good entry point for a lot of different services. Mm-hmm. And if you think about Samsung, you're not thinking about, Samsung, makes a browser, because it's actually quite unknown. But the fact is that Samsung does make a lot of different hardware products. So they can go, let's say, from phones to VR headsets to fridges, tablets,
washing
machines, etc. Right. And I think in the overall plan is, how can you integrate all these devices together and kind of have this multi-device experience? And in the end, most of it, the unifying mesh is just web technologies. But also we try to look, I guess, into a more immediate and a bit of the past as well. The idea for Samsung to have a web browser is that it can tailor its vision of how the web should be and how a user experience in a browser should be to its users. For example, there are a couple of services that I find quite cool. One of them is called Samsung Pass. So with Samsung Pass, pretty much, I go into a website. Let's say I go a website that's asking for some sort of authentication. So once it detects that I want to log into this website, it uses Samsung Pass, which has information stored about, for example, my fingerprints or my irises, and then it automatically logs me in without me even touching the phone. So this is, for example, a use case where you would say, this is something differentiated because it's tied into Samsung hardware in this specific example. Another one is, for example, we're talking about virtual reality. You have the Gear VR, which is the Samsung's headset in which you put the phone and you get a special version of Samsung Internet that is running in this environment. And the whole way that you integrate the sensors that you would need, let's say the motion sensors for the tracking of the head, the Gear VR controller as well. All of that you can do it because you have the browser and you can make the browser behave as you want.
So it's sort of middle ground for every service, every platform, every device you have.
Yes, and also possibly even more important is the whole idea that we do take, for example, privacy and security as one of our core features. We actually do see it as another very important differentiator from some other browsers of the competition. So the fact that, for example, we have We have tracking protection built into the browser.
Right.
All these type of features as well is something like how we see the web experience, and we want Samsung users and Samsung Internet users to have the best possible experience that they can have on the web. So
yeah, for many people, it's just default browser. They don't care about browser. They don't know what browser is. They need internet. So and you're an entry point for them.
True. There's something to be said about the power of default. That is true. Then again, in this kind of quest of trying to showcase as well, we're not leading in market share only because of we're a default, just because we're the default browser in that device, but also because we do have very interesting features, and we are making active efforts into bringing some very needed technologies like progressive web apps, and kind of like it's kind of like on the bigger picture, the browser has a lot of effort, not only from of course the engineering team that's building it, but also from involvement that some other members of, for example, the DevRel team or the engineering team are involved with standards. So how do we get all this feedback towards developers and from developers to the people that are implementing it?
That's reminding me, I used to work for Opera Software as a DevRel, just like you now, and we used to be this famous like second or third browser, and it's bad on one side because you're not the first one, and it's good because it's not like less responsibility, but you're open for experiments. You're open to improve something, to invent something. And I remember we were trying to do something first, to implement some features first, even from web platform, because when you're number one player, you have billions of users, and it's really hard to make interesting experiments or decisions that might affect a lot of people. But if you have smaller market share, if you're able to move faster in some situations, it's an opportunity for a company,
it's definitely an opportunity, and I can see it the way, for example, we were the first browser that was supporting the Web VR specification a couple of years ago. We also started implementing quite early the Add to Home Screen button for pretty much installing progressive web apps. So there's definitely a lot of things that you could do, especially when you focus on specific areas based on what you think is important for the users of your platform. But yeah, I completely agree there.
Okay, so for Samsung, you just like you said, you were the first who implemented WebVR, for example. But as for gaming APIs for this new WebXR thing, I guess it's your main focus these days.
I wouldn't say it's the main focus, but it's definitely one of the focuses based on the hardware that we have, based on the fact that there's the Gear VR. I think there's currently a lot of focus on progressive web apps, and that's something that's kind of like a joint effort between several companies. We're actually very, very happy to be collaborating on some efforts with Microsoft, for example. But in general, progressive web apps, I would say definitely making a push more into privacy and ethics as well. How can we think of better ways of doing, for example, permissions management on the browser, these type of things.
Okay. I remember Samsung being involved in the spec, like around display something for your watch products. There used to be a spec that describes how you would align text on a rounded screen, for example. And I remember some people from Samsung taking part in this. And do you know anything about it?
I do not know anything about that one. Was that related to any web standards? Or
that was a CSS spec.
CSS spec. Yeah, no, I am not aware of that one.
Okay, but what about involvement of the company to the web standards work?
That's actually quite huge for us. My boss, he's, for example, co-chair of the tag group in W3C. We have a colleague of mine is co-chair of the WCC Immersive Web Group.
Right.
We've had people that have been involved with and that are involved with the web payments specification. We have colleagues as well that are working with us, that were working with Service Worker. I've been chair of a WCC workshop in WebVR, content authoring. I'm currently on the program committee as well of the upcoming W3C workshop on web gaming.
So you're basically everywhere.
We let's say that we try to be where we are needed in order to maintain a bit more of diversity in the web, which is also something that we try to advocate a lot about.
No, that's invaluable, because like having multiple points of view, having to have multiple members on communities, not just from a single company. That's a healthy web.
Yes. We need more web browsers. We definitely need more browser engines, not less.
Oh yeah. Speaking of platforms that you're have in the company, I believe Android these days is the only platform for Samsung for to have your own skin over it, or to have your own customized experience interface.
Nope. No, there's actually the Tizen project as well.
Is it still going on?
Tizen is going, and it's going, I would say, quite strong. It's been, for example, it's the OS that is powering the smartwatches.
I thought that it's Android based. Oh, right. Tell me about it.
So, well, I don't know much because I'm not currently, I'm not directly related in those groups. I know, let's say, what the more tech savvy consumer would know. But I know that the smartwatches are actually running Tizen OS, and they've been actually updated recently to the latest version of Tizen. TVs are running Tizen OS as well.
Okay.
Fridges are running Tizen OS as well, and there's even a line of phones. If I'm not mistaken, it's the Galaxy Z. I think that they're for emerging markets. I know that they are selling them in India. I don't remember exactly the model, but we do have phones that are based on the Tizen OS. Cool thing is that you're starting to see a lot of services that are just appearing in all of these in the Tizen platform. For example, smart things. You get smart things on the watch, you get smart things on the fridge, you get smart things on the TV, you get smart things everywhere. So,
but is it possible, for example, on a typical Tizen-based phone or any other interface to have features like PWA? Because these days, I've seen a lot of news about PWA coming to desktop via Microsoft, via Chrome as an engine on desktop, and the same happening on Android because Google is running it. But
also, one that you're actually that's not really known, but it's quite interesting, is the fact that they are already in Samsung DeX. Which is kind of cool, because then you can just plug in your phone. And
maybe a year ago, I stopped by at some Samsung stores, and I played with this DeX thing. That was really nice. It wasn't the best user experience ever, but it was really definitely an interesting thing to transition seamlessly from your phone to desktop experience.
PWAs are
but it's still Android based.
It's still Android based, yes. The versions of the browser that we have running on Tizen are, I believe they're not Chromium, and they don't support all the features that you would need in order to get.
Okay, I guess they're WebKit based.
You kind of catch me off guard there, because I'm not really sure what is the engine that's running the fridge.
I don't see any other engine that could be easily ported because WebKit is well known for being like portable enough for devices like fridges and
So possibly it would be. I wouldn't say yes or no, because I really don't know. You really caught me off guard. Fridges are not my
all right.
specialty.
You have so many products. You have so many platforms running.
But But there are some interesting things that, let's say, even though there's no support, that I'm sure there's no support for PWAs on a fridge yet because of the browser, the engine that does not support some of the features. There is something to be said about progressive enhancement and how when you create, I've created a couple of experiences and I've tested them on fridge and I've tested them on my watch as well. Experiences that are using, for example, some sort of WebGL or A-frame, and I've been able to actually get them to run on the watch.
Wow. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's unexpected, but yeah, pre-WA support.
Okay, back to VR thing. I'm struggling to understand what was the main reason for WebVR becoming WebXR spec, and what's the key difference, and why did this happen, and what's the browser support going on, and
so it comes as WebVR. It kind of started as an experiment. It was just some engineers from Mozilla and from Google playing around with what you could do to create these WebGL, and
it's like Web Components version 0, right? Something early days.
Kind of ish. The name change was announced officially. It was not last year, but the year before.
17.
In 17, in an event in Brussels, and it was pretty much because once you start actually developing the specification, they realized that it's not only about VR anymore, and there's a lot of interesting things that are coming with.
So not only virtual, but also
it could be augmented, and the whole point of DX in a way is that DX could be substituted by any other type of reality that might be coming.
So it's extendable in a way.
Some people say it's extendable. Some people say it's cross reality.
Right.
Yeah. It could be anything. I've even heard the kind of like joke or anecdote. I can't say if it's true because I wasn't there. But that pretty much during one of the sessions, the idea for an X came because you have an A which looks like a triangle pointing up, and you have a V which is like a triangle pointing down. So once you put them together, you get the X. But yeah,
that's funny. Okay, that's a good story.
So the idea is kind of to encompass any type, and that's why the group itself, the W3C group itself, community group, changed its name. It used to be the WebVR community group. Now it's the Immersive Web.
Right.
It's more gearing towards any type of technology that can be used in an immersive or to create an immersive experience, and this can be from, let's say, the more traditional headsets that we already know and have used to even stationary displays. Think about an installation where you're completely surrounded in a dome or with displays, and all of this is reacting to how you are moving based on some sensors or any type of thing. So the whole idea is how would the spec encompass all these type of devices?
It reminds me a bit another analogy, pointer events spec. Like touch events spec, Apple developed it for touch interfaces on their own devices. But pointer events is open enough, is abstract enough to have multiple devices, stylus, fingers, and many other input devices that we might invent in the future.
Indeed.
So it's open enough, and it's future proof.
Indeed, because if you think about, let's say that the first version of the specification, WebXR specification that's going to be out there is going to be focused mainly on VR content. So you're going to be able to do virtual environments. You're going to be able to do something where you're immersed. But on a later version, you're going to start seeing a lot more support for augmented reality. And when we think about augmented reality, we can start thinking, what about hand tracking, gesture recognition, these type of technology. So it is, let's say that the scope was expanded to include all new cases, all new hardware that's been coming out. It's just been changing at such a fast pace that...
Oh, yeah. As for PWA, I get the use case. Completely, because I've been working at Opera at the times when we were implementing PWA support in Opera. So we were trying to understand for ourselves why we need this.
Yeah.
And we answered this question. As for XR, it's harder for me to combine web and XR together in proper use cases, because the only use case I tried myself, I think with augmented reality, that was this IKEA app where I tried to put some furniture in my apartment, and it was super cool. But then, like for a regular website, for typical product developer, it's harder.
I think the key is, how can the technology help tell a story or give you an experience that none other can or is able to at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
And well, you can talk about a lot of the great experiences that you can have related to gaming and short cinematic experiences with VR. I think the most powerful type of applications that we're going to be seeing from XR on the web are the ones that can really enhance a learning journey. And it can be something as simple as, for example, using 3D models of objects or locations instead of pictures. So let's say that if you're on Wikipedia, and there was actually a demo that was built, I believe, by someone in the A-Frame team, where they would have the image. It was an example about the Burj Khalifa. So you're looking for information. It says it's I think it was like 828 meters high, which 828 meters. It's high, but how high it is. And they also put this 3D model of the building, which you can kind of rotate, play around with, and you get an idea of what the building is. But once you click on the immerse button, it's like if you were standing right next to it.
Oh,
it's
right.
not photorealistic. And that is probably the most powerful thing, because it's not even photorealistic, but you get a real sense of the scale of that building. So very small experience, very simple, but it completely changed the perception.
I see.
From let's say the experience of these type of.
Sometimes I also use Google Street View to when I need to go somewhere, and I'm not sure what's the building number or how I'm gonna find the place I'm looking for. So I arrive there by car and then just walking around trying to find what I'm looking for. And I always open Google Street View and look around. Well, from at the flat surface of my screen, to actually get where I'm going, because it's much easier than you have some memories of the place. It's not like you have it won't have the same effect when you're looking at the photos, but when you're trying to rotate the view, it gives you better memories, so it's easier to be there. But I'm trying to understand if putting some VR goggles would make it better, make it easier.
In that specific case, I would be looking at something more like AR.
Yeah, of course.
And think about, in a couple of years, we might have not a headset. We might have some sort of glasses, like the ones that Google tried to do a couple of years ago.
I actually have Google Glass.
The Google Glass,
it was super crazy expensive to get, but yeah.
Sounds expensive. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
But something like the Google Glass or something like the Epson glasses as well that are more for augmented reality. Think about having a feed of data. You already have maybe access to location.
Like
you already
overlaying
have, overlaying. So in that case, it's a perfectly valid example of how you can combine the web with, in this case, augmented reality. And possibly the way that you would be doing this type of thing is by combining not only the geolocation API, but the WebXR API as well, to kind of know a future version of the WebXR API to know where you're looking at, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But it reminds me of this chicken and egg problem, because it's not here yet. The hardware is not here yet. But why would companies spend so much time and effort to build something right now? Why would developers build something? Because devices they're not ready. Headsets and all those goggles are not good enough for people to wear them in a long periods of time. You're not able to hold your hand and control your VR experience long enough, because like we're not that creatures yet to be able to do things like that. So we need it's a futuristic thing still for me.
It's futuristic as the iPhone was in...
That's a good example.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the state of the web and how you would see web pages on before the whole revolution of, mobile web, I wouldn't think that I would be, interacting in such a gestural way with web applications, or that web applications would actually adapt in a smart way. So that's kind of like how I see it. We have...
it's just the next step.
It's the next step. I think it's another computing platform. I think it's going to be quite revolutionary. I personally do not believe in this whole concept of, we're going to be always connected to a VR headset. And I think there's definitely going to be experiences and applications that will benefit greatly from it. If we're talking about education, if we're talking about enhancing a touristic experience on a museum, even for art and these type of collaborative experiences, I think that's going to be a game changer, because we really now have a way of manipulating and creating in space and being able to share in real time and be able to create even in real time at the moment. And yes, devices, they are not, as portable as we would want. But I think a lot of this is going to change quite fast, especially with 5G coming closer and closer.
A reliable connection is so important for these new technologies.
Yeah, especially because most of the assets that we are actually starting to play with are bigger. It's not going to be only image optimization, which that would be, let's say, for the textures of models that you want to put in your experiences. But think about now optimizing 3D models, trying to get the lower number of polygons for the things that you're going to be using in your experience. It's going to be interesting.
720p at 24 frames per second is not enough for VR.
Yeah.
Technologies are getting closer and closer to us. Like remember like 20 years ago, we used to like press the button and look at the screen like a meter away from us to get some information to interact with it. But these days we're basically wrapping technologies around us, like our smartwatch, phone in your pocket, something on your head. Like it's getting closer and closer. It's like really wrapping around you. So we're not creating interfaces that are just new and cool because we imagine them to be like that. We're just trying to create something that suit human being.
Yes, and that is, I think that's the key to really understand possibly all the developments that we're having in personal computing. Technology only serves the purpose of letting us express ourselves in different ways. I think VR, AR, XR is just the latest way that we will be able to share things that we are doing.
It's a natural step.
Yeah, it's a natural step. I wouldn't be surprised at all if in the next couple of years we see streaming VR service, if we see social networks that are based completely around VR. And I'm not saying that they don't exist, because you have VR chat, you have Oculus has some services as well where you can. But I'm talking like to an extent that they are so popular as current social networks, big company social networks.
Back to some market sharing competition. I see Google doing something with XR, VR, and AR with their own devices, but they're also invested in the web implementation as well. I see you're doing something close enough to web platform to be compatible with VR, XR, and everything. But Apple is over and over again trying to bet on software rather than web, because they're not treating software. They're not treating web as the replacement for software, because they're replacing extensions in the Safari browser with some software model. They're not supporting web technologies enough. Well, they have browser. They invented a lot of nice things for their own browser. But again, I think in terms of XR, they're betting on their software platforms like Swift, like their as SDKs they introduced recently.
AR.
So again, Apple is known for not shipping something that it's not 100% ready. They wait for the moment. Does it mean that web is not 100% ready for those kind of experiences, or it's just Apple being Apple?
I guess this is more of a personal kind of view, but I think Safari is a great browser. I think they have their own priorities, as every other company has. And
no, I really like that they're focused on security right now. So they're giving talks about passwords, autofills, and smart defaults and reader modes that you can get rid of ads and poor design.
Yeah. Sounds actually like some of the features that we already have in Samsung.
It's not like
the Brave browser has. But I think it's all a matter of priorities. I think the web platform at the moment has proven to be capable enough to be running VR experiences at 90 frames per second with 6 degrees of freedom. It could be a matter of, and actually I think it's more of a matter of we need to get the technology out there to as many people as we can. It's kind of like funny that everyone talks about trying to find this killer application for VR. I think we still need to get it out in the hands of artists, creators, developers. It's still relatively unknown. I keep on going to conferences, and even, for example, in the talk that I was doing yesterday, I kind of got the sense, that not many people knew about the possibility of using web technologies to create these type of experiences. So there is still a lot of work to be done. Technology as well needs to catch up a bit, but in the end, it's just a matter of priorities. Samsung also has its native VR collaborations with Oculus. Google has the Daydream apps as well. But in the end, at least on the web front, it's nice to see that Google, Microsoft, Samsung, Mozilla, we're all in this together, and the specification is going to be ready, I would say, sooner rather than later. If you take into account the time that it generally takes for an idea that came out of a community group to actually be, let's say, drafted into specification, it's quite nice to see that that it's been quite fast as well for WebXR.
It just makes me sad to see, again, software first, web second. I think we're good enough to be the first, or at least at the same time with software these days. But
it really depends as well on, I guess, who you ask, because the platform is just getting faster, better. I've been quite impressed lately by, for example, what you've been able to do with progressive web apps, and how they're getting integrated now with Web APK, how it just behaves even and displays on your phone and feels like a native app. I don't really see that, for example, in the case of Apple, they don't really have a VR platform. They do have the AR platform, which I believe it's proving to be quite successful on their devices.
But not VR.
But not VR, yeah.
Because they don't have any goggles or holder for their phones.
Yeah, I would say it's a matter of priority. And actually, now that I keep on thinking about who's doing really cool things, even outside of Apple, we can think about companies, Microsoft with the HoloLens, Magic Leap with the Magic Leap 1, even different companies that are actually adopting the specification and that are actually saying, we will support this because it is that the web is a platform that we want to be seen as a first-class citizen. And you can go to some of the websites, creator websites or developer websites for some of these companies, and you can see how WebVR is listed already as one of 2 or 3 options. So you generally have the game engine integrations like Unreal, Unity. You get the native, but you're also getting more and more web. So I think we're definitely kind of like coming around to this idea, that the web browser is now more powerful than ever, and it's just going to keep on getting faster. And in the end, if you think about the fact that JavaScript is more and more present and more easy to find than, for example, C or C++, then we pretty much have armies of developers that are already out there. We only need to tell them, hey, this exists, and with your skills, you can start building this. And that's probably one of the key ideas when I speak about WebXR, web, and an immersive web. I don't tell people, don't think that this means that you need to build a game or a virtual world of this. Think about how you can enhance all the existing content that you already have in your web properties, and what does this new API and what does this new technology bring to you? That is key, because it kind of switches. If I tell you, or if I tell most of the people VR, they immediately think, shooters, headset, I'm dodging here. But there's so much more.
Yeah. Well, I hope Apple will catch up following the lead that you're at Samsung and Google and some other companies are.
I'm pretty sure they will. They will support once it's. We're talking about something that's technically not even a standard yet.
Yeah.
So they will. They will, the same way that they're catching up with PWAs.
Yeah. They've been doing a really great job these days. So yeah, I think it's not a lost cause.
Yeah, definitely not.
Okay, thank you for being here today. I hope you'll have a chance to see the city.
I probably will be trying to make a run and see if I can see a bit of Novosibirsk, because it's been definitely a very nice day.
But now that we know each other, I think I will have more chances to invite you to speak on some conferences in Russia as well.
I'd be looking forward to that.
St. Petersburg next time.
Come in.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
You were listening to 168th special episode of Web Standards podcast. I'm your host, Vadim Makeev. Next week, as usual, we'll be back with the regular one. Let us know if you liked it. Bye and see you next week. Cheers!